Right, okay. Welcome,
Cool. Oh
welcome
wait, no, no,
to.
no. The
Well,
recording thing you got to do first is you got to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it allows you to sync sound in case that's unsynced. That's
but it's
a
one, but it's only gonna be one video. We don't have to
no.
part. We don't have to put two different bits of sound together.
Right. Well, then all the better. It's more likely to be synced then, isn't
You can
it?
clap if you
You're
want.
welcome. Yeah. All right.
Right, okay. This is episode one of our new podcast.
Well, okay, or zero. This might be like a trial run, you know.
So-
I don't want to say it's episode one in case it's really bad. So we'll
right,
say like,
okay.
oh, it's like 0.1.
Right, okay.
But until we decide it's good enough to be episode one, it'll just be like minus
Episode
one.
0.1
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
test screening for a podcast.
Yeah. That we're
That's
doing.
right. Okay.
Dad made a nerd as
Dad
well.
made a nerd. So this is our new podcast. I think for me the reason why we wanted to do this, we are 425 miles apart from each other
Mm.
in body, but in
Yeah.
mind we're
No.
not.
Yeah. In spirituality, we're much closer in space.
We are, and we would be doing this conversation anyway. We would probably be doing it with everybody in our family just ignoring us. This is a chance to actually just have a bit of headspace to talk about what we want to talk about.
Yeah, this is helpful to me as well because I've spent all day at work just thinking about a lot of the recent news that you don't know about
I
that's come
don't.
out, and then I've gone to my mates where I've just ranted at him, and he's not given two shits about what I've said, and so at least this way I get a rant at you, and you have to kind of
Listen.
follow along, yeah, and listen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds good. So we're going to have a number of different segments, aren't we? I think we're going
Yeah,
to try and
we'll work them out as we
organize
go.
it. We're going to do a bit of. I think we should probably talk about why on earth we've started a podcast.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh well,
Why have we done?
maybe we should start off with saying who we are.
Well, that's even a better idea. So I'm going to start 'cause I'm the older one. Elders go
Alleged.
first.
Right. Okay. Of course, you have less
I'm
time, so
Neil.
it's only fair.
I'm Neil, dad of Jacob, dad of a family. Care about comics, care about geeky stuff. We love films. We love all that kind of stuff. And I've nurtured you into being also into some of those things, and
Yeah,
also
funny enough.
regularly be corrected of where I'm wrong as well. So I think there is going to be disagreement in some of this podcast on different
Most
opinions.
definitely.
But that's me. Go on, Jay. Who are you?
Yeah, I'm Jay. I'm your son. Funny enough, hence the name Dad made a nerd. I am the nerd of which you have made. Um, and yeah, also very into nerd culture, that kind of thing. You know, you have the better backdrop right now, and I did say this to you before. Just to clarify, a substantial amount of that is also mine.
Yeah, and I think it's only actually neatly rode up because of your OCD as well. I would say
Yes,
as well.
true.
So
Yeah, I do have like a few comics behind, but being so far away, I can't take it all with me.
no.
But yeah, I was thinking we have a few different segments as well. Like we just a bit of a catch up. What are we watching? What are we reading? Maybe.
Yep.
I for one have been rewatching Daredevil.
The
Again,
original, well,
yeah,
the original Marvel stuff
well,
before
not the Ben
Disney took
Affleck
over.
one. I'm good. I don't want to rewatch that one. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
with
No,
Colin Farrell as Bullseye as well. That's
oh yeah, forgot about that.
how far that man has come recently with more
Yeah,
better stuff he's been doing. That's quite.
winning, I believe, an Emmy for The Penguin.
Yeah.
Amazing show.
So,
But
what was that? 3, 4 seasons of the original?
yeah, so there's three. So it started in 2015, I believe, and it was when Netflix made their acquisition with Disney and the MCU, and they started making their Netflix branch corner of the MCU, which maybe for a long time wasn't connected, but it was. Like, for example, the most they ever connected was the Netflix shows reference the Battle of New York in the first Avengers in 2012, and there were like posters of newspapers to do with the fight between Abomination and Hulk in the first Hulk film. And then the Marvel films never seemed to reference Netflix, mostly because they weren't overseen by Kevin Feige, the all-hailing god of the MCU. And then as the MCU expanded and Disney Plus was made. Netflix lost acquisition over that corner of characters. Disney then took back these Netflix shows, and then lo and behold, a little movie called Spider-Man No Way Home comes out, where there's a cameo from a certain Charlie Cox who plays Matt Murdock Daredevil, and everyone loses their mind, including me. I remember when I was sat in the cinema, I went like opening night, and it was the closest I've ever got to the film experience of watching Endgame or Infinity War, when everyone just dusted. And I remember I went to see Endgame multiple times in the cinema. I went with a few of my friends at the time, and they were next to me like crying
I
when
think we went
like
together once as well.
we
I'm
did,
sure
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I went as many times as I could. It was great. But like the times I went with you first, and then the times I went with my friends, I knew what was coming. I knew Peter Parker was about to dust and go, "Oh, I feel ill, Mr. Stark," you know, that thing. And they started crying. I found it humorous. I found it really funny. But imagine in Endgame, when we went to see Endgame, and then Cap took Mjolnir, the uproar. Like, I've never had a theater experience or a movie watching experience in a cinema that was that like engaging. And the closest to that was when Charlie Cox. See, I'm so good at going on tangents. It's terrible. But when Charlie Cox appeared in Spider-Man, and I got so excited. And that was a little cameo. And then from that, we got Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin appear in Hawkeye. And then that led to a spin-off show of Echo, which had him more front and center. And Daredevil also cameoed in the first episode. And now we've got this Daredevil Born Again show coming out next week.
Yeah.
And the road to Born Again has been a bit of a mad one. So just to give a bit of context for the show, it's been in production for years now. They announced it many, many years ago, and it's bounced around different head writers, different producers, and had some serious rewrites not long ago. And it seems the majority of those rewrites were how it connects to the past Netflix shows, because there's the question of, are they canon with the MCU? Are they like just the same characters? Are the events of what happened in the Netflix shows going to be important to the show on Disney? And it seems like the major rewrites means that they now are. And so
That's the thing that creates so many questions for us, though, wasn't it? We watched those series and we watched those shows, and it's like, how can Charlie Cox just show up? We had so many questions. We still have questions, don't we? And the frustration with some of those series is they never really gave you the satisfying answer that you wanted. And it created loads of conversation online, didn't it? But
yeah,
love Born Again in terms of the comics and the story. It's got to be landed really well. I love Daredevil. Great.
Well, the
character.
thing is, season 3 kind of. So if we get into the comics conversation, Daredevil Born Again, Frank Miller wrote that amazing arc, and that was mostly adapted in, I believe, season 3 of Daredevil. So Born Again seems like more of just a title in terms of its newfound streaming service more than anything. It's Daredevil's being reimagined, Born Again, and Daredevil does show, Charlie Cox's Daredevil does show up in She-Hulk, and I think they did quite a good job at adapting his version of Daredevil into a more Disney-fied space.
Quite comic in that sense. I mean, it was funny. I mean, he had a yellow suit.
Also, I think it's important to acknowledge it was a comedy. She-Hulk was a comedy, but Charlie Cox did a really good job at keeping his character of Daredevil, but then they enhanced it up a bit. Like, he was doing more like acrobatic flips, but it still worked. And it seems like Born Again is going to be R-rated. It's going to go back down to the very violent, visceral Daredevil of the Netflix shows. And so I've been rewatching Daredevil again because I haven't seen it since it came out. And so I've nearly finished season 1, and then I'm going to be on season 2, and then season 3, and then I'll be hopefully finished close enough in time to start Born Again when that starts next week. And that was a very long tangent about what I'm watching. So
those series are great. Those Daredevil series were really good. So they really hold up. The hope is that it kind of takes it to that next level. So there is a hope. I'll go with a little bit of what I've I'm going to start with what I've been reading. Jacob, for the last year, I've had a mission of getting from Spider-Man comics kind of brand new day start. So after the crazy Michael Straczynski end
Mhm.
of kind of Mephisto crazy rewriting a load of Spider-Man's backstory, and kind of getting rid of the fact that nobody knew him anymore, right the way through to issue 700, which is where we kind of about to go into Superior Spider-Man. I spent a year reading every issue in between, and
You have.
actually really good. And mainly
And what,
because we bought a copy of Spider Island
yeah,
that I
and what
wanted to
years?
read.
Because I know Spider Island's around 2012. So
Yeah,
what kind of years of time span do these comics
so
take up? Do you have an idea?
so I think we're talking about 2008 up to 2013.
Okay,
They had
cool.
they went to a period of having 3 issues a month, but there was also a lot of little side ones as well. So quite, although we say it's 546 to 700, in reality there was loads of little other side bits, and I got to bits of story arcs and stuff that I went to, and I also then followed it up and actually finished Avengers versus X-Men as well, which came kind of straight
Oh,
after.
you've read that now.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah,
See,
so
this is why I like this podcast because now I get to catch up with you on this, and it's not on a call where I'm actually supposed to be like planning things or talking to mum as well. This means that we can actually just talk about comics.
yeah.
So
Well,
what?
the most interesting thing for me in that run, because I really I love getting into the serial nature of that Spider-Man comic and that run, because it wasn't about Spider-Man. It was about Peter Parker's life and
Mm,
how Spider-Man's part of that life as well. And I thought that was something that was a team of writers that was doing different stuff. Dan Slott kind of took on most of the story writing for most of it, but uh, the serial of the different things that were happening. So I know you read Spider Island. You didn't like it
yes,
that much,
yeah, but I think
but it
it's
was the
important to
culmination
say
for me for loads of stuff. So the story arc around Anti Venom, the story arc around what's his friend who we went to school with, the jock
Flash Thompson.
Flash Thompson. So all of that happened, all of the setup for that happened in that kind of run up for those comics. So for me, it was like a big culmination of quite a few things ending. So I really enjoyed it actually. I kind
See
of read
that?
it literally in like a day, which for me is
Oh
usually a
wow,
sense of I've got into it a bit.
because it's a chunky. That Spider Island is quite chunky as well.
I
Like
think it's
it's
about 12 issues. I think it might be 10
yeah.
issues actually, with a couple of side ones. But I really liked it. Artwork was really good. Um, but the storyline for me was the fact that it was a culmination of a number of different things. A little bit wacky and a bit out there, but that's Spider Man.
Mm.
That's the
Yeah, see, that's interesting to me because I went into Spider Island not having read the
yeah
run prior to it or what it was leading up to. So I went into a story which I was like, okay, I bought this comic because I found it on Facebook Marketplace and I know you wanted it, so I picked it up and I read it. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, Peter's dating this girl. I don't even remember who. Um,
We should probably talk about our hobby, by the way, of trying to find good value
all right,
second-hand
we'll get to
comic
that. We'll get to
purchases,
that.
but maybe we keep that one.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, I went into reading Spider Island without any context of like where Peter Parker is in that current run. And I found it to be jarring and it was very silly. And to me it was just like, okay, cool, there's loads of things going on. Madam Web just showed up. There's a whole arc to do with Venom
Yeah.
and what's going on with that. And I don't wasn't connected to that personally, and I thought the concept itself was quite silly to me of just, oh, New York all has spider powers now.
Yeah.
I kind of like the twist where I don't know if we can get into spoil. It came out in 2012, right?
Yeah.
You can have it spoiled a bit, right? It's
We'll
been a
write
while.
we'll write on the
It's,
bio the
it's
spoilers
been over a
inside.
decade. Like, come on, are you gonna read it really? Um,
Well,
but
no, but again, like the whole setup of the way the DNA was taken that created the spiders was something that had happened in the run up to it
see,
over the
yeah,
last 20 issues or so. So, um, it changed my view of the reading of a serial, and I've probably
mm,
spent the last year or so going through different examples of serial things. So I kind of read from Gore the God Butcher all the way through the Jason Aaron run.
mm,
I did the same with Jason Aaron's run on Doctor Strange as well. That kind of moving into kind of reading kind of solo one shot kind of stories into reading the serial element of it is something which I think just gives a different dimension of reading comics, doesn't
Yeah, as well, if you couldn't guess, we're big fans of Jason Aaron as a comic writer. I'm currently reading he's writing TMNT at the moment, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he's doing a great job. Um, and
it's really
yeah,
cool.
like that's I find it funny that you've been reading all that Spider-Man from like a decade ago now, because I'm a decade ahead of you. I haven't read what you've read, but I've started from I believe 2021
Yeah.
Spider-Man because I'm trying to catch up to modern day because not too long ago I actually read every Miles Morales comic there ever was. And so I'm currently pretty much up to date with that until I got to an event that came out in 2023 maybe called Gang War, where I went, maybe I should go back and start at Spider-Man #1, so then I can read them in time, because there's also a third comic series called The Spectacular Spider-Men, which is Miles and Peter teaming up. And so that, I think, speaks to a wider issue I have with comics in terms of the interconnectivity is really nice a lot of the time, and that's what makes a really lived in cool world with those satisfying moments where Wolverine shows up for an issue. But also the feeling of having to have knowledge of such a backlog of information, and stories, that not only is like a lot to read, but incredibly difficult to work out what.
Yeah.
So I started from the, because it's been like you've seen it in shops and stuff a lot. The Spider-Man by the same writer that is right the Spider-Man run that you've written, which is just the Edge of Spider-Verse recent comic, and then that follows into Spider-Man: The End of the Spider-Verse. But that only turned out to be 3 issues or 3 volumes, sorry, which introduced Spider-Boy, and then from that, it went on to Zeb Wells, and that's where I started, and that's what I've been reading. Drawn by John Romita Jr. for the majority of it, actually, so far.
Love John Romita Jr.'s art.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Artists for comics like Kick-Ass and stuff.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
the
I've been
difference with
reading that.
it's the jumping on points, isn't it? So
Mm.
I think the issue with some of the Marvels, kind of everything is canon. You have different writers that come in.
Yeah.
My kind of take now is I want to go away and look at some of the DC stuff where you can see and read different kind of bits of stories that you don't have to have read everything going, because they're kind of jumping on points can be slightly different. So I'm not going to tease it now, but I've been reading Nice House on the Lake by James Tynion. So
Oh.
by the next time we do another one of these, I should have read that and we can talk about that then.
That's interesting because I've never heard of that and I've no clue what that is. So when we do another episode, I want you to pitch me on it.
I've been looking through Eisner Award winners, and that was the reason why I kind of read it.
Oh, cool.
Last
Yeah, because I think
year.
for the most part as well, we were used to kind of like, you see the shelves behind you, and our comics are very much like these set stories that fit within wider runs, yes, but you collect the famous stories that fill in. And I think you reading Spider-Man over the last year, and I've been very much over the last few years now trying to read the consistent comic runs month to month alongside these other bigger collected editions. It has given me a appreciation for like a writer's pure run. Like I've been able to read all of Miles Morales' stuff as Spider-Man, and that's so rewarding when you're like, for example, Saladin Ahmed wrote his Miles for 42 issues, and when you get toward the end of that, it's just so brilliant what he's been able to do, and like the things that they foreshadow, because it is an artist's work, it's their completed vision.
Yeah.
And I guess when you buy a single part of that, it is, you're not getting the full scope of what they're thinking. um
Great segue, Saladin Ahmed.
mm,
So the other thing I was going to talk about, what I've been listening to, and I know we've both been listening to this as well,
yes.
podcasts. So I think great media, great form of slightly different way of telling stories. So watch some of the previous listen to some of the previous Batman Unburied. Last week, listened to Batman Unburied Fallen City. I thought that kind of landed quite without huge amount of media attention, almost under the radar. I followed that up with Flash Escape the Midnight Circus as well. Both of those podcasts, I think, absolutely
Mm.
brilliant. Not massive fan of the voice of Batman in the Batman one, but the storyline and the way they told the kind of Court of Owls storyline, really good, really good,
Yeah.
and the
So
just brilliant way of telling stories.
yeah, so just to clarify, like these are audio dramas that DC have been making, which I'm just finding it now. So yeah, so Batman Unburied was the first one that came out a while ago. Um, I want to say I can't find the exact year. It was more around 2021, roughly.
No, I think it was later than
Um,
that. I think it was 20. It might have been
oh no,
20
no,
late
2022.
22.
Okay, yeah. So season one came out in 2022, um, where Winston Duke voiced Batman for season one, and I thought excellent voice for Batman,
Really good.
and that's something cool about these audio dramas. Given that the internet's not the nicest place, you can actually give people of color the chance to play these other characters who otherwise might be just, you know, attacked online for it. And so it's a nice way to let them do that. And for like Winston Duke, for example, to show how he could play an amazing Bruce Wayne. Season two came out recently, just before Christmas. There was also a Riddler like mystery spin-off in between these two as well, which was good. But Coleman Domingo, who we recently heard the voice of Norman Osborn in the new Spider-Man animated show, voiced Batman here. And I found this quite jarring for me personally because I was going from listening to this audio drama when I'm out and about, coming back from the gym, and then I come back and watch the new episode of Spider-Man, and there's his voice again, but now he's Norman Osborn. And I thought he didn't land for me as Batman because I don't think there was a big enough distinction between his Bruce voice and his Batman voice. But also, he's such an incredible Norman Osborn as well that I was like, well, he should be that. This should be what his role is. Like, I want him to be in the MCU as Norman because he was that good.
I preferred him as Norman Osborn than Batman. That Spider-Man show was brilliant, but I had reservations about it until the last two episodes. The last two episodes were really cool. I thought
Mm.
that was good actually. Particularly the nods to the Spider-Man game in the moves that Spider-Man does in terms of the fighting. Did you spot that?
No.
I just if you watch it again and just watch in the last two episodes some of the fight scenes, it basically looks like playing the Spider-Man game on the PlayStation. There's some of the
Oh,
moves are
yes.
very, very similar.
See,
But I
so
loved it.
so I also have like because I go to the cinema way more than I should to watch a lot of films. I have a Instagram account, Jay's Reviews. It's just if you want to see any reviews there. And I did leave a review for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And I, for the most part, really loved the show. I liked what it was doing. I had some skepticisms about taking out a lot of Peter's supporting cast because he debatably has one of the best supporting casts in all of comics. And so they were bringing in these weird, obscure characters that never seem to have a connection to Peter in the comics. However, I really like them. I still think it really worked, especially in this what if scenario and world. But uh, I did find that although the animation was slightly like I thought it was quite plain and boring at times. I didn't like when they were just in dialogue. When he was swinging and fighting, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was like the way it almost kind of made it look like the camera movement made the quite simplistic animation really kind of come
Mm.
to life. And that I think that's what I meant by the last two episodes. Lots of fight scenes, particularly when they're fighting Scorpion. Hopefully, no spoilers
Yes.
again. There is a fight with Scorpion. It's a Spider-Man
Mm.
comic. There's bound to be one of the Sinister Six in there, isn't there? But um, I did like the animation, but I just particularly spotted moves from the Spider-Man game, which just made me like it a little bit more, to be
Yeah.
honest. Really cool.
So because I've been rewatching this with my friend as well at the same time. So actually the show holds up really well. Um especially in the fights. And it's the three-dimensional space the camera can move through. It adds so much. I remember the fight with so Charlie Cox, speaking of Daredevil earlier, has a little part in the show as well as this universe's version of Daredevil. And there's a little fight that Spider-Man and Daredevil have, and just the way that they animate Peter's movements is just so truly Spider-Man. He's not necessarily an amazing fighter, and he's not constantly an offense, but the way he uses his webs to, like, when he gets thrown away, to pull himself back in, and it is just like the video game.
Yeah, brilliant.
Except when I play the video game and I'm good, and not when you play the video game and get hit all the time.
This is the point where you're going to say that when I play the video game, I play it with my head. You have a go at me like, I think it's an old person thing. This is definitely the kind of dad son element of this. I definitely play the PlayStation like somebody who's over the age of 40, and I'm quite okay with that. I'm just going to own it. I'm okay with it.
You fit the stereotype very well.